Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wait What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 219. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011. You can drop a follow over there. You'll get notified when we go live, so you join in on the fun and conversation with us. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video and MP3 for amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, anywhere you're watching or listening to this, if you could drop a follow, sub, like, whatever it is, it may seem small, but it does help the channel grow. So if you take the time to do that, we would love and appreciate you for it. Whew, we had a busy weekend this past weekend as of recording, at least in terms of the video game side of things. Summer Game Fest did happen Friday, and there were plenty of other showcases throughout the weekend. So kind of want to talk about some games that stood out to me as really interesting from the wide variety of showcases that I took part of. I definitely didn't watch all of them, but from the ones that I did watch, talk about those cool things that we did see. I'd be interested to hear what you guys saw and what grabbed your attention. But we're going to go over those and see what we have to look forward to in the future. So first showcase that I started off with, and this was kind of a surprise one that I didn't even know was happening, was with the Guerrilla Collective. So Guerrilla Collective, holy crap. If you were into indies, you need to check out this showcase because they had a fuck ton that they showed off in this showcase. There was a few games here that did catch my attention. Like Light Odyssey, which of course I didn't take notes on. Light Odyssey looked real cool. There was Fallen Aces, which is a comic book style, kind of James Bond action hero type game. Looked very interesting and entertaining. For the FNAF fans, there was FNAF Into the Pit, which kind of looked like an origin story. 2D game, pixel art, also looked very funny as well. There was Little Problems, which I believe is a follow-up game from this developer. Not follow-up as a sequel, but it's the similar typing of this like point-and-click mystery puzzle game. That looked really interesting. I didn't take a note of what their previous title was, but I feel like it's one I've kind of heard in the zeitgeist being talked about a lot in terms of like its quality. So looking forward to checking that out and seeing what that has to offer as well. Wild Tactics was another one of note I put here that caught my attention. Once again, not notes. But I would say the biggest standout of this showcase that I'm like really looking forward to was a game called Constance. Now, it doesn't come out until late 2025, at least as of right now. But it's kind of this mix of Chicory and Gree. So Chicory in that game, if you guys don't know, you're this little dog, and you're going around and you're kind of painting the world, making it full of color and trying to help out was it Brush Bear? The person who holds like this magic brush of color and paint and kind of help them through their difficulties and doubts in themselves and learn about your own kind of insecurities that you have and become a better person and kind of go through those things together. So there was elements of that, and then in Gree, just like also similar to Chicory, filling the world full of color. So this seemed like it was a nice mix of those two with the Metroidvania playstyle, so going back and forth, solving puzzles, defeating enemies, whatnot. It looked very, very cool. So this definitely is something that I would have on your radar if those are some games that you're interested in. I don't know why the website's not working right now. But that was definitely like hit me out of nowhere. Looks very, very cool. So want to keep my eye on that and check that out when it does come out later. One more shout out I do have to give from the Guerrilla Collective. We've talked about the game before, and you might have seen it on the YouTube channel, but Deathbound, they had another trailer here, and I just want to give a shout out to Mike Towndrow from 61 Indie and from Vicarious. He did the voiceover for this, so Mike, just very cool and kind person. Just want to give him a shout out to, he did a great job with his voiceover, his first attempt, I think, at something like this. So very cool. Happy to see, my friends doing cool stuff and succeeding in the things and ventures that they're chasing and going after. So just shout out to him. Cool to be like, wait a minute, as I recognized the voice. So shout out to Mike for doing the voiceover for that trailer. But Deathbound, I think they got shown off here. Latin Games Showcase. There might have been one more. So looking forward to Deathbound as that approaches with a release date. Let's see what else was there. Okay, so that was Guerrilla Collective. IGN Live was kind of going on this whole weekend as well. They seem to be dropping stuff on their social media platforms. There was one Urban Jungle, which is kind of like an organizational game similar to Unpacking. There was a few that I took notes of here, but nothing big. It was just very like sporadic when those things were kind of being released. So I don't have much notes on IGN Live stuff, but just wanted to shout out that one. Then we got to the main show, Summer Game Fest. This was Friday. If you guys were in chat and live reacting with us, thank you for stopping by and watching the program with us. Biggest thing, and not even a game release to come out of this, was Jeff talking about the industry and unfortunately, you know, all the layoffs that have been happening this year and last year. And he talked about indie developers, and that was huge. Jeff has been kind of hit or miss on the using his platform to talk about issues like this. I know we all got on his case with the Kojima stuff, like going to bat against Konami when Kojima was being treated wrongly, and then when Blizzard stuff was happening, he didn't really acknowledge it, I think, all that much. So to see him open the show with this and talk about indie developers and like being respectful to the devs, even if you're working in a bigger company, I did appreciate that. So that was a good move there. And we did see a lot of indies in this showcase as well, from single devs to smaller teams. So that was great to see. So let's get on into the things that caught my attention from Summer Game Fest. So we did see Quidditch Champions. I know this has been rumored for a while. I don't know if this is one I'll be jumping into right away, but if it's anything like the PS2 era Harry Potter Quidditch game, that game slapped. So if it's anything like that where it's just a lot of fun to play as, whether you're playing as the schools or you're doing, at least in that game, you were doing like the World Cup teams, that was a blast. We did see a few different characters, like we saw our main Harry Potter cast. I think we saw Victor Crumb's team in there. So I don't know who exactly will be playable in this game. But I'm intrigued that they're making it. Seemed cool. Next one they showed off was a solo dev indie game. It was Cuff Blast. This seems very entertaining. Seems like a streamer game like an Among Us. A Lethal Company. You're these little alien guys and you're like jailbreaking. Apparently you can play this up to 20 players. And yeah, it was just a very goofy trailer. You just did to see these little aliens like throwing sticks of dynamite to blow up toilets or break doors or take down guards, and they like beat the shit out of them with little spoons. You got to see some of them like controlling the computer consoles to open different doors or make it accessible for other players as they escaped out through tunnels or whatever. And then there was a bus that was carrying a bunch of them. You saw some of them escaping via helicopter. Just seems like a very fun, chaotic energy in that game. So yeah, looks very fun. Cuff Blast, or is it Cuff Bust? I don't remember. But 2025, who knows? Star Wars Outlaws, we got another look at that, and I know as of recording today, Ubisoft Forward, I believe they showed off more of it. I'm intrigued by this game. It looks great. It looks very cool. This kind of open world, and you're what are you? You're not a bounty hunter. You're a smuggler. So to take what has worked pretty well in the Jedi series with Survivor and Fallen Order, making these vast Star Wars worlds and just putting it in a different character. Obviously, it's a different developer as well, but it's not just, oh, you're a Jedi. You're just a regular Joe Schmo doing these tasks, going around. Like I said, they showed more gameplay or a more in-depth look at the Ubisoft Forward today. Was it Ubisoft Forward? I don't know. Today, as a recording, there was more stuff about it. It seems really cool. I don't know if I'll jump into it, just with me personally being behind on not even playing Jedi Survivor all the way through, even though I was really excited for it. That's a whole different topic in itself. But it looks like a lot of fun, or it looks very cool in terms of what it's doing or what it's allowing you to do. So we'll see. Comes out in August, which I will say for a lot of these titles, specifically in Summer Game Fest, a lot of the ones that Keighley had as its show, they were coming out like pretty soon, whether it's in the remainder of this calendar year or it was early 2025. There wasn't much that was like, oh, we're going to show you this thing and it's really far away. Like, I think I heard about one today, the Prince of Persia remake. That's not till 2026. I think that was the farthest date I had heard, which I appreciate. After Star Wars Outlaws, we got one that I was looking forward to quite a bit, which we talked about in last week's episode, but Neva got its gameplay trailer reveal. Looks gorgeous with its art style. We saw Neva, who's the dog, and I want to say it was Abel. I am so sorry. We saw the main character, the two of them traveling through these vast landscapes and seeing the backgrounds behind them and what environments we're going to be traveling through with the characters. We saw a little bit of combat as well, so it's not going to be like Gree where you're just kind of jumping, platforming around, going through. There will be some combat elements to this, but it looked very fluid with those motions and looked great. We did see Neva kind of grow up progressively through the trailer as well, so won't stay the wolf cub forever. It will grow up. I'm curious how this story is going to play out. I know it's going to tug at the heartstrings, but the trailer, or the what am I thinking of? The world premiere, I don't know, that first trailer, the reveal trailer. Wow, I couldn't think of reveal. Reveal trailer. We did see that there was a giant wolf that did get attacked, and then there was the cub behind. I'm kind of scared that Neva is going to be this big wolf, and then we'll start with a new one, or is it going to be this wolf cub is Neva, and we'll go from there. Really scared of how that's going to turn out, but I know I'm going to absolutely love it, even if I'm crying my soul out. But 2024, they did confirm there. No hard date, but at least they did say it's still coming out this year. But once again, very, very excited for that. Black Myth Wukong got a very, very detailed CG trailer. Confirmed their release date for August 20th and showed off their kind of pre-order bonuses. Another Souls-like, following a storybook, I believe, and telling the adventurer there. I know we've talked about the devs being a little, in terms of how they treat women, so that's not great. At least, tiptoe around that one. So we'll see if we jump into that down the line. Exciting announcement next. For the next exciting announcement, Street Fighter 6 getting their Season 2 pass. Now, I haven't played a lot of Street Fighter 6. I jumped into the story mode a little bit when it did come out. Played a crap ton when I was down in North Carolina with Turn-Based TJ. We had a blast playing that for hours and hours. Now they've announced their Season 2 set of characters, which is crossover characters. We're getting some Fatal Fury characters in there. We get Terry, we get Mai, we get Elena, and M. Bison is making his return as well. Bison is right around the corner. I believe he was in August. Well, it said summer, so soon. Terry will be fall, Mai will be next, and Elena will be, I believe, the winter. So, no, spring, excuse me. So, cool to see them, just that crossover. We haven't had much crossover characters in Street Fighter unless it was costumes. So just excited to see, for the fighting game fans, that this is happening. I don't know if personally I will jump into it, but it was just very high energy seeing that reveal there. Speaking of fighting games, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero got another trailer here. I'm on the fence if I want to jump into this. Enjoyed Kakarot a lot, which obviously is very different in terms of what the Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball fighting games have been about, like Fighters and back in the day, Budokai and Tenkaichi, which I believe this is more reflective reflective of in terms of gameplay, so that 3D fighter. I might jump into it. I love Dragon Ball. I'm not like the biggest fan of it, but I've always really enjoyed the stories that they do tell, and the games especially. So I might jump back into this just kind of for that itch of nostalgia. It seems like they're covering, your typical Dragon Ball Z sagas, the Saiyan saga, the Frieza, Cell saga, Boo, and then they're covering stuff after, maybe even to Super. I haven't watched Super, but I'm like, oh, this is kind of intriguing because it'd be new stuff to me. So nice to see the trailer here. There was a lot of excitement for it, so we'll see if we jump into that down the line. But speaking of surprises, akin to Street Fighter's thing, we got Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind remix. We got that announced after the success of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. This is like beat 'em up side, it looked awesome. Just a beat 'em up for the Power Ranger franchise. Obviously, we're sticking with Mighty Morphin. It's a shame we're not going a different franchise or different lineage, I guess you could say, or season with them. But it looked great. It looked like a lot of fun. I'm curious. We only saw the main 5 Rangers right now. I'm curious if Tommy will be unlockable, whether in the green suit or the white suit. I would presume they would have to have at least one of them. But yeah, there's a lot of different. You get your standard sideways or side-scrolling beat 'em up style in there, but then there was also like rail shooters. There was 3D elements where you were flying through almost like a Star Fox. No date, unfortunately, locked on this one, so that's the only sucky thing. But that was out of nowhere. It was very, very cool to hear about. So we went from the highest of highs in terms of me, of excitement of like, oh yeah, it's Power Rangers, great, to the lowest of lows in the best way possible. Tugging at the heartstrings, we got the reveal of Deer and Boy. Very simple title, but oh boy, man, fighting the emotions on stream here. This one looked fantastic in terms of the story they were trying to tell. So it's a young boy. I think he lost a parent. You see him kind of at their gravesite dealing with that, and then you see on the other side of things this young deer losing a parent there, nudging at them, and they're both sad, and they come together. And you see them, the little boy's like carrying the deer in his backpack. You see them navigating together through this forest, solving puzzles together. Eventually they find, I believe it was like a boar who was infected by this like poison that's kind of corrupting him almost. And gradually, similar to Neva with the wolf cub, you'll see that the deer and the boy both grow until the deer is, big deer with antlers and stuff like that, and it changes the puzzle mechanics. But it seems like it's going to be figuring out, obviously, these two, how they move past loss, and then dealing with whatever's going on in the forest with this corruption. So very, very excited for this one, even though it's another one I know I'm going to just get destroyed by emotionally, even just with that trailer. But we didn't have any announcement for this one, but it was a smaller team as well. I believe it was 8 people, they said. So take your time. Absolutely enthralled or excited for this one. I don't know why I want to use the word enthralled today. Weird. Very excited for this one. Looking forward to hearing more about it as it gets closer to release. Random one was next, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I know people want that Kingdom Hearts news. Jeff was like, Kingdom, and everyone's like, and then I haven't played the first one. I've heard comparisons to like GTA Medieval Age. The story trailer, the narrative trailer that they'd show, seemed like a lot of cool story elements that they were sharing there, to kind of rogue gentlemen like getting into trouble but then coming together to face a greater evil and whatnot. I don't know, seemed cool. Might check it out. Speaking of indies, we got a very goofy one. We got Killer Bean next. Yep, you heard me right, Killer Bean. Apparently made by a solo dev and animator who's worked on projects like The Matrix. It was like a coffee bean just shooting. He was like trained as a spy, and now he's got to get revenge on the organization that trained him because they betrayed him, blah, blah, blah. And it was very goofy. A lot of cool stuff that you could do in this game. I believe they showed at one point he was like catching a grenade that like was thrown at him, and then he like under his leg and chucked it back like he was slam dunking it in the NBA. It looked absolutely ridiculous and insane. I think early access summer 2024. No idea of a full release there, but looked like just insane stupidity and fun. So I don't know. Looked cool. Another indie title that we did see was Wander Stop. Seemed like a farming simulator. You are a individual working at a tea joint in the woods, and you're just kind of getting yourself acclimated to this new job and trying to leave your past behind you. You were like chasing after like competing in the Coliseum or something like that, and you're like, no, I'm actually really happy with my life. And as the character is saying this to herself, like, I'm happy, it's okay, I'm happy, it's all right, she's like dealing with something inside of her, and she gets really angry and like grits her teeth and doubts herself, and she kind of has to be woken up out of this. Really intrigued about where that story is going to go and what kind of twists they're going to be telling, because obviously it's not just this farming sim type game that we're doing here with gathering resources, making the teas. I want to see what is going on with this girl and like how can we help her. Seemed like a fun one as well. Another shout out, speaking of 6-1 Indie, shout out to Kyle from 6-1 Indie. He got to go to Summer Game Fest and he got to reveal something he's working on the PR side, as we got the announcement for Anotria, The Last Song. Now, this game looked cool before I knew Kyle was working on it. Comes out also really soon. Comes out September 19th. But it's another Souls-like, and I seem to be on a kick with those lately. But full cinematic trailer here, so we didn't get to see any gameplay. But the gimmick was all in masks. It was like a masquerade, like those types of masks. But it was a individual going to this giant castle. There's a king up on top of his throne. He's like, oh, you challenge me. Send some jabronis down to this guy. He wipes him out, no problem. And then we get to see this epic clash between this one soldier and the king. And during their fight, the individual who's challenging him like swaps his mask into almost like a jester-esque. He's got this like almost Mardi Gras like color styled big hair and a big hammer. And he eventually takes care of the king and rips off his mask. And you see the king's troops like run in. They're going to try and help the king. And out of the smoke, this individual emerges with the king's mask on. And the troops are like, oh, well, I guess you're in charge now, as this guy walks away. It looked very cool. Looking forward to learning more about this game. I know, like I said, we're kind of on the kick with Souls right now, with Liza P and Another Crab's Treasure playing off stream and on stream respectively, or flip those around, but whatever. I've been wanting to play more. I'm like, oh, this is going pretty well. Maybe I want to get back into Sekiro. Maybe I want to try Elden Ring a little bit more. Seeing these titles, or titles like these, I'm like, yeah, that looks really cool. So it seems like it's got a cool mechanic with the masks. I want to learn more about that and see what's going on there. But cool to hear. Obviously, Kyle's working on it, PR-wise, and just a cool reveal overall. Next shout out, not a game per se, but I want to give a big shout out to Inner Sloth announcing Outer Sloth. So Inner Sloth being the devs behind Among Us. Obviously, they've had a lot of success recently over these past couple of years. Among Us took a little bit of while to get traction, as when it was first launched, like nobody was playing it, and then it just kind of out of nowhere blew up, and they've had this success over these past couple of years. They are now making Outer Sloth, which is kind of them paying it forward, saying thank you to those who supported them, and pushing funding to smaller indie devs and teams and supporting their ventures. So we got to see some reveals from what they are currently funding. I believe it was 5 games. So just a really cool announcement, and cool for something like an indie studio to then be like, hey, we're gonna also try and help publish stuff. Just insane. So good on them. I know they've been getting a lot of flack lately for like, just because Among Us doesn't seem to get a lot of updates here and there. Like, there's other projects they've been working on, obviously, like Among Us VR. They have their TV show coming out, but in terms of like, oh, your games are popular, where's the development for it? It's been kind of hit or miss. To see them be like, actually, this is the thing we were working on this whole time, and to push it forward, that's just really cool to see. Because I know, obviously, bigger companies, they're separate, but like usually like, oh, money, you're just gonna wrangle that in. To see them pay that forward and push it towards other teams and other creators is just a cool thing to see. So congrats to them on announcing that. I'm sure that was a big thing for them. Definitely seemed like it on stage. Really quick shout out for Skate. They're still working on it. It looks good for what we did see. Apparently console playtesting is coming this fall, so Skate fans, they're working on it. Just be patient. And then last one, and this was the last reveal of the show, we got another look at Phantom Blade Zero. They announced a world tour demo kind of thing they were doing for 2024, different locations they'll have it playable at. I know it was playable at IGN Live, as I saw some footage there. This game continues to impress with how fluid its combat is. Gets a lot of comparisons with Sekiro in terms of like the environment that you're in and the creatures you're going against, but just like the fluidity of combat, going around and doing the attacks with your katana blade or whatever, looks incredible. So another Souls-like, looks awesome. Looking forward to seeing more there. No release date yet. I think that world tour thing was the only thing they announced in terms of dates, so hopefully we'll get to see something soon there. Afterwards was Day of the Devs. Some more indie games. Quick ones I want to shout out here. Battle Vision Network, coming out 2025, is a turn-based match-em-up game. 1v1, trying to break through your opponent's defenses, attack them directly, try and rack up points over a certain amount of rounds. I'm talking too fast. That looked really cool. We got another look at Arranger, a role puzzling adventure, out July 25th. You move a grid around to solve puzzles and move past different obstacles, similar to Pac-Man. This one just looked cool just because of that puzzle mechanic and arranging things. We got to see a really cool one with Screenbound. Player is holding a Game Boy-like device and moving around a 3D space, but you need to use both environments, the 2D and the 3D, to solve puzzles and do your platforming. So the biggest mechanic that they showed is like your enemies are on your 2D screen. You're not going to see them in the 3D world, so you need to pay attention and keep going back and forth between the two displays to figure out what you need to do. So just a really cool mechanic to see. I found myself personally, when watching the trailer, like staring at the Game Boy screen most of the time and not the outside world. So I'm curious, if I do decide to jump into it, how much of a kind of like breaking your brain of like, oh yeah, I gotta look there too, how much of a challenge or hurdle that will be to climb when tackling something like that, going in between the two displays. Next was Zoocosis. Comes out this summer. Five Nights at Freddy-esque, with the zookeeper kind of working at night, with a darker tale going on around it. But yeah, you're just kind of taking care of these animals, the zebras, the rhinos, the elephants, whatever. But for some reason in the zoo itself, there's like almost this, I don't know if it was experimentation. It's either experimentation or this weird corruptness is going on with the animals, turns them into these horrific beasts, and you got to try and nurse them back to health. So looked creepy for obvious reasons. So looking forward to seeing and learning more about that. Next one was a goofy one. It was called While Waiting. Goofy waiting game where you can wait or see what happens when you don't. So there was different things like wait for the bus, wait for the elevator, whatever it was. And you could do that, or there was like different task lists of seeing, oh, well, what happens if I go on this other elevator that's broken? What happens if I walk to work? What happens if I do this, that, the other thing? And you kind of get to see the butterfly effect and the craziness happen around you, sometimes to a goofy extent, of just seeing things unfold before you. So that looked fun. I popped huge for this next one. A little to the left is getting DLC focused on multiple solutions out June 25th, so right around the corner. I recently replayed through a little to the left on PlayStation, so looking forward to diving into more levels there. And really cool that it's all multiple like solves. It's not just like one solution to each puzzle. I believe they said some of them even have like 5 different ways you could solve it. So looking forward to jumping into that and kind of testing my brain with those puzzles. Last one personally for me for Day of the Devs was a game called Hello Again, coming out 2025. You're a cute little otter postman. You're delivering a package and you get stranded on an island. The only thing about this island, though, is there's a 12-hour time loop, and you have to solve puzzles by using your conversations, talking with the different civilians on this island as well, and either time things, because certain things may be only available during certain hours of that 12-hour loop. Looked adorable in terms of an art style, and looked like a fun puzzle game that will really scratch that itch of like making you really try and figure everything out and how to get off the island yourself. So fun ones at Day of the Devs per usual. I did go back and watch Devolver Digital. They had this weird gimmick around it where it was Volvi, who's their mascot, I guess you could say, which I think he was only really introduced like last year, unless I'm totally out of the loop, which fair enough. It was his 15th birthday, and it was this like super fan, and we're watching this guy in his apartment prep for the party, and occasionally we would get flashes of games, which I talked about when I was planning my live reacts of like, I love Devolver's games and what they decide to back and release. It's just their presentations is not something I really gravitate towards. It's like very theatrical, highly produced, like this narrative thing going on. And it's like, yeah, not for me. I did go back and watch this one all the way through, though, and it was okay. It was an interesting story they were telling. Like short, not anything super long, maybe 20, 30 minutes. But we did see a few games from there. I'll just list them off real quickly. The big one that they start off with was Cult of the Lamb is getting couch co-op, coming at August 12th. We saw the Crush House revealed on August 9th. Kind of a love show. Like, oh, you're all in the house and make relationships or fight people or whatever with a darker twist behind it. There was Tenjitsu. There was Talos Principle getting DLC. Angerfoot gets an announcement of its release date on July 11th, showing off the different sneaker power-ups. And then we got Possessors coming out in 2025. All right, next one, which was on Saturday, which Lady and I watched off stream, was the Wholesome Showcase. Nothing really, there was a few things that stuck out to me, but nothing that like really grabbed my attention. I will say, if you love indie titles, this is another one that you need to jump into. Definitely a lot of farming simulator type ones, as Wholesome does aim for that more cozy vibe. They had 70 plus titles, lots of montages, and quick reveals. So I will say the montages was a little bit of a negative, as you didn't get a lot of information about those games. But holy shit, seeing all those. So good on Wholesome. Good on Jenny for doing that. Shout out to the Indie Council. Yeah, just crazy seeing that amount of games all together. And then I took a little bit of a break because the only one I watched after that was the Xbox Showcase. Heard a lot of rumors going into it that this was like, Xbox is going to blow it out of the water. They need to show up and show out because they've kind of sucked the past few years, allegedly, in their showcases. And I will say this, Xbox is finally cooking. Now, I'm not a big Xbox fan just in terms of like, I don't have a Series S, X, so I don't play a lot of titles on my Xbox. I've never been like, oh, well, this is a shit console or anything like that. No, it's just not a platform that I play on. But seeing a lot of these titles, I was like, wow, these guys are doing great. Wow. And I said, wow. Seems like there's a lot of good stuff coming to the Xbox platform. So so people who have so people who have the platform, whether it is PC Game Pass or Xbox Game Pass, you guys are going to be eating well. I will say that. A lot that stood out to me here. We did get Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Doom is getting a sequel. Doom The Dark Age is coming 2025. Love Doom 2016. Doom Eternal. While I enjoyed, I honestly don't remember much of it. I remember it being a little bit difficult towards the end. But cool to see another Doom game here. Don't know if this will be one I'll jump into. And that's also like, I don't know what of these are cross-platform, what's coming also to the PlayStation side of things, if they'll come a year later like Xbox has been doing more recently with titles like Sea of Thieves coming to the Sony side of things, and what's the one that the company got taken down? Hi-Fi Rush. There was one other one. But maybe these are timed exclusives just in terms of like Xbox. We'll put it on our platform first, and then it will go to other places. As we've seen Sony do the same thing too and release things on PC. Time will tell. But Doom the Dark Ages 2025 was the first one I saw. Fallout 76 is getting another expansion on June 12th. South of Midnight. We saw this at maybe last year's show. I can't remember. But we saw a gameplay reveal here, also announced for 2025. This was probably my biggest thing of like, whoa, I'm really excited for that. We got to see the main character there doing her platforming, going around, fighting some enemies and dealing with a giant crocodile island thing. The animation style is really cool, where it's kind of it's hard to even describe or give a comparison to. It's not fluid. It's fluid, but it's not like your arm moving. Yeah, that's a smooth motion. It's got this little stutter to it where it's almost less frames than a 30 to 60. Almost like a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That's probably a good comparison there. But it looks great, looks fantastic. Definitely would be interested in diving into that. So seeing the gameplay reveal here was cool. Big one, but not for me. We got to see Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater gameplay. So I know there's a lot of people excited for that. Winterboro was a new one that was announced for 2025. You're adorable mouse. You're going back home. You want to escape the big city. But when you get back home, unfortunately, it's not like upkept very well and you need to rebuild. So you got that farming simulator aspect to it. You're finally able to reach some relatives that live nearby, and unfortunately they get snatched by an owl. So I'm interested to see where the story goes, if there's going to be combat involved with this game. If it's just the farming simulator, then where's that story beat go? But the art style was very cool, almost reminiscent of like a storybook, where you're kind of 2D, just flat moving around this world, picture book-esque. So we'll have to see where that goes. Mixtape was another cool one indie wise that they showed 2025. My quick synopsis of it was Teens Summer Memories Music Journey. Good notes, Bret. Good notes. But it seems like you guys just reliving your past memories and summer vacations, going to theme parks, going out on adventures, traveling, skateboarding down hills and whatnot. And then there's going to be a lot of 80s nostalgia music involved in this. So I've heard high things from the developer who is making this. So Mixtape seems like a cool one to check out. Another huge, exciting one for me out of nowhere was Life is Strange Double Exposure, getting announced for October 29th. My history with Life is Strange, got to Life is Strange 1 late to the game. I think it was just before that final episode dropped, and playing that on stream and having an absolute blast with people watching it and like on the edge of their seats, like, oh my God, is he going to mess this up? Is he going to make the right choices? Had a blast with Life is Strange 1. Jumped into Life is Strange 2, enjoyed it, but it definitely was not, it didn't reach the highest of highs that the first one did. I didn't jump into True Colors or Before the Storm, I believe was the other one. But the cool thing about Double Exposure is Max from Life is Strange 1 is making her return. We get to see her down the line as an adult with her powers kind of re-emerging, and a murder mystery element also into that story as well. So just totally out of left field. I didn't expect them to return to Max and her character. It has me excited for Life is Strange again. I'll have to keep an eye on it and see if it's going to come to other platforms, because that would be very exciting. I'm curious if, I think True Colors, from the little I know from Jeff playing it, I think it was just split out into chapters. They didn't do the episodic releases similar to the first one. So I'm curious if they'll stay to that, where it's just full game and break it up, or they'll chapter it out. It was still like you buy it once. It's just you got the other parts later, so you had those moments in between of like really thinking about things, similar to, weekly episodic television, thinking about things between it. But I know it was a little bit in between episodes for that first one. We'll have to see how they decide to do the release schedule for this next game. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle got shown gameplay wise in cinematics. 2024 looks really good. Not for me. The last one that was for me, or at least that piqued my attention, we got a new Gears of War. There was a lot of rumors going into the Xbox showcase that a Doom was going to be revealed. It did. That Gears was going to be revealed. It was. And then it was going to be a Gears 6. Turns out it's not Gears 6. It's actually a prequel game. It's showing or telling us the story of E-Day. So when let's test my Gears of War knowledge. What were the guys in the ground called? Ooh, boy. Yeah, I really put the pressure on myself here. When the bad guys emerged from underground and attacked everybody. So we got to see Marcus defending or fighting off one of the blank in the ground, in his house rather, attacking there. Got to see him get in that conflict there. And at the end, we got to see Dom back. Obviously, nice to see him after saying our goodbyes in Gears of War 3. But it seems like we're going to be telling the story of what happened as this whole situation got kicked off. Now, I haven't played a Gears of War in quite some time. 2 was my first one. Then I went back to the first game and jumped into 3. Had a great time playing co-op with Papa Griff through 2 and 3 with that. 1, I remember being extremely difficult, but making it through that. But then after 3, I was like, this hit the spot of a nice conclusion. I know they continued the story with Judgment and then rolling into Gears 4 and 5 afterwards. There was also that Funko Pop Gears of War game. Probably not main canon. But I didn't dive into those because I just felt like, similar to like the Halos and the Assassin's Creed, like there's just too many sequels, and I felt like I'm good. I got my fix out of it. But it was nice to see those characters come back, and I don't know if it's like I'm ready to dive back into that. It was more of just like, oh, that looks really cool. Like that seems like a fun announcement to make. So cool that they're jumping back into it, and cool that they are going back and telling those early stories with I'm gonna look it up because I can't think of it. Gears of War enemies. It's gonna be something stupid where I'm gonna go, the Locust. Yep, I should have known. But cool to see it. Cool that they're gonna be telling this story with, like I said, the Emergence Day, I think that's what it's called, that early part, and see the strain that the Locusts are putting on the human side, and why everybody's so gruff and tough with the chainsaw guns later on down the line. But so yeah, overall, a lot of good games. Obviously, I only listed off however many there that caught my attention, but there are plenty of titles that were announced. I know Assassin's Creed, Avowed, World of Warcraft, and Karn, and like there's a shit ton. They would be stupid to sit here and list them all. A lot of great titles were shown off, big titles, smaller teams. So hopefully there's something that caught your attention. And remember, biggest thing here is if something did catch your attention, go wishlist them on Steam or whatever platform you do play on. This does help, obviously, them know, like, oh, there's some traction here. There's some people involved. They're excited for it. And especially for the indie side of stuff, if you can get that groundswell behind it, if they don't already have a publisher, this can help those indie teams get those publishers, get funding for their game, make it better, support it, and even support their next project going forward. So whatever caught your attention, make sure you go support those. Be interested in hearing what you guys are looking forward to from the summer showcases this weekend. Let me know down in the comment section down below, and I'm definitely looking forward to picking your brain on what's coming up in this year and next year. But yeah,